The discovery that changed everything. The red dust of Mars swirled around Dr. Elena Vasquez as she carefully extracted another fragment from the ancient structure buried beneath Olympus Mons. For 3 years, she had been working on this dig site, uncovering what appeared to be some of the oldest artificial structures ever found in the solar system. The Galactic Coalition had funded her research reluctantly, treating it more as a curiosity than serious archaeology. Just another primitive human relic, they had said. Nothing that could compare to the great works of the Zephyrian Empire or the magnificent cities of Altair Prime. Belina wiped the sweat from her brow and smiled grimly. If only they knew what she had really found. The fragment in her hands wasn't made of any material known to current human science. It seemed to shift and shimmer, almost as if it existed in multiple dimensions at once. More importantly, it was generating quantum signatures that shouldn't have been possible with technology from Earth's supposed primitive past. Across the galaxy on the Coalition research station orbiting Proxima Centauri, Zethkar of the Veltar species was having his own moment of discovery. His 6 eyes focused intently on the data streaming across his holographic displays, showing energy patterns that made no sense according to established galactic history. These readings cannot be correct, he muttered to himself, his translator converting his clicks and whistles into standard galactic. These quantum resonance frequencies, they matched the theoretical signatures of the first builders. The first builders were a legend, a myth told across countless worlds about an ancient race that had supposedly created the fundamental technologies that all modern civilizations were built upon. Faster than light travel, quantum computers, dimensional storage systems, energy shields, all of these innovations were attributed to the mysterious first builders who had vanished millions of years ago, leaving behind only traces of their incredible technology. But according to all known history, humans were newcomers to the galaxy. They had only achieved spaceflight a few centuries ago and were considered one of the youngest and weakest species in the Coalition. The idea that they could be connected to the first builders was laughable, or so everyone thought. Elena's discovery was about to change everything. As she ran her scanner over the latest fragment, her equipment began detecting patterns that made her heart race. The quantum signatures weren't just similar to human technology. They were identical to the deepest levels of human DNA encoding, patterns that existed in every human cell but had never been understood. "My God," she whispered, "we didn't find this technology. We made it." Meanwhile, deep in the archives of an abandoned space station floating in the void between galaxies, automated systems that had been dormant for eons suddenly flickered to life. The station was a relic from the time of the first builders, hidden in a dimensional fold that made it invisible to most scanners. But now, responding to quantum signals from both Mars and Proxima Centauri, its ancient computers began to awaken. Data streams poured through subspace channels, carrying information that had been sealed away for millions of years. The files contained blueprints, star charts, and most shocking of all, genetic records that matched perfectly with modern human DNA. The truth was staggering. Humans weren't newcomers to the galaxy. They were its original architects. Millions of years ago, an advanced human civilization had spread across the stars, building the infrastructure that would later be used by younger species. They had created the hyperspace lanes, established the dimensional anchor points that made galactic travel possible, and even seeded worlds with the basic technologies that other civilizations would eventually discover and claim as their own. But something had happened. A great catastrophe had forced humanity to retreat, to hide, to start over on a small blue world they called Earth. They had sealed away their vast civilization, leaving behind only automated systems and hidden archives, waiting for the day when humanity would be ready to reclaim their heritage. That day was now. As Elena worked frantically to decode the messages hidden in the Martian artifacts, similar discoveries were being made across human space. On the Moon, construction workers found chambers filled with technology that dwarfed anything in the current Coalition arsenal. In the asteroid belt, miners uncovered ships the size of cities, powered by energy sources that could fuel entire star systems. Each discovery sent quantum pulses through the galaxy's subspace networks, and these pulses were being detected by coalition monitoring stations. Panic began to spread among the alien leadership as they realized that the weak, primitive humans they had dismissed were connected to something far more powerful than they had ever imagined. Zethkar was among the first to understand the implications. His analysis of the quantum signatures led him to a conclusion that terrified his superiors. The humans weren't just connected to the first builders. They were the first builders, awakening after millions of years of dormancy. This cannot be allowed to become public knowledge. Admiral Cross of the Hegemony Fleet declared during an emergency session of the Coalition Council, "If the other species learn that humans are the original galactic power, it will upset the entire balance of our civilization." "But the evidence is undeniable," Zethkar protested. "The quantum signatures, the genetic matches, the technological parallels, everything points to human origins for our most fundamental technologies." "Then we destroy the evidence," Cross snarled, his reptilian features twisted with anger and fear. "We eliminate the human research teams before they can spread this information further." It was too late for such measures. Across human space, the awakening had begun in earnest. Ancient defense systems came online, responding to the genetic signatures of their creators' descendants. Automated factories hidden in asteroids and dead worlds began producing ships and weapons using technologies that were millions of years ahead of anything the Coalition possessed. Elena found herself at the center of this awakening when her excavation site on Mars suddenly expanded, revealing not just artifacts, but an entire underground complex that stretched for kilometers beneath the planet's surface. As she descended into the depths, she discovered control rooms filled with holographic displays showing the entire galaxy in real time, with human installations marked in brilliant blue light. "Welcome home, Architect," a voice said, coming from everywhere and nowhere at once. "We have been waiting for your return." The voice belonged to an artificial intelligence, one of many that had been left behind to guard humanity's legacy. It explained that the human civilization of old had called themselves the architects, builders of the galactic infrastructure that all modern species depended upon. "Why did you leave?" Elena asked, overwhelmed by the magnitude of what she was learning. "We didn't leave," the AI replied. "We were forced to retreat when the galaxy faced a threat that required us to sacrifice our civilization to save all life. But we always planned to return when the time was right, when humanity had grown strong enough to reclaim its role as guardian of the galaxy." As the AI spoke, displays around the chamber showed coalition fleets moving toward human space, their intention clear. The alien civilizations were planning to attack before humanity could fully awaken to its true power. "The awakening has begun," the AI continued. "Our ancient ships are stirring, our defense networks are coming online, and our children, the humans of today, are remembering who they truly are. But the young races fear us, as they should. They have grown comfortable in the galaxy we built for them, and they will not easily accept our return." Elena realized that she was witnessing the beginning of a conflict that would reshape the entire galaxy. Humanity's true nature was being revealed, and the other species would have to choose between accepting their place in a human-led galaxy or fighting a war they couldn't possibly win. The first human ships began emerging from their million-year sleep, rising from hidden bases on dead worlds, and drifting through quantum space like ghosts returning to life. They were massive vessels, each one capable of housing millions of people and equipped with weapons that could reshape planets. But more than their size or power, these ships carried something far more valuable: the knowledge and wisdom of the original galactic civilization. As Elena stood in the Martian control center, watching displays that showed the entire galaxy awakening to humanity's return, she knew that nothing would ever be the same. The architects were coming home, and the galaxy would have to learn to live with its true masters once again. The question was whether this return would bring peace or war, cooperation or conquest. That would depend on the choices made in the days to come, as two very different versions of humanity. The ancient architects and their modern descendants worked together to reclaim their place among the stars. But one thing was certain: the galaxy would never again make the mistake of underestimating humanity. When the architects return, the emergency session of the Galactic Coalition Council had been going on for 18 hours straight, and the tension in the chamber was thick enough to cut with a plasma blade. Representatives from over 200 species filled the vast amphitheater, their various forms of communication creating a cacophony of clicks, whistles, growls, and electronic pulses that the universal translators struggled to keep up with. At the center of it all stood Admiral Cross, his scaled hide reflecting the harsh lighting as he gestured angrily at the holographic display showing human space. "The situation is deteriorating rapidly," he announced. "In the past 72 hours, we've detected over 3,000 energy signatures matching First Builder technology, all emanating from what we previously thought were primitive human colonies." Zethkar watched from his position in the observer section, his 6 eyes tracking the various reactions around the chamber. Fear dominated most faces, but he also saw calculation in some, and even excitement in a few. The revelation that humans were the legendary First Builders had shattered the galactic status quo, but not everyone saw that as a bad thing. "What are our options?" demanded Counselor Vexera of the Crystalline Syndicate, her translucent form pulsing with nervous energy. "We could attempt diplomatic contact," suggested Ambassador Thulvin of the Peaceful Trade Alliance. "If the humans truly are the First Builders, then perhaps we can negotiate a new arrangement that benefits everyone." Admiral Cross's laugh was a harsh, grating sound. "Negotiate with beings who built the very foundations of our civilization and then abandoned us. They clearly see us as inferior. The only question is whether they'll treat us as servants or eliminate us entirely." On Earth, Captain Marcus Reed stood in the newly revealed command center beneath the Antarctic ice, watching similar debates play out among human leadership. The awakening of humanity's true heritage had been just as shocking to modern humans as it had been to the aliens. Most people were struggling to accept that their species had once ruled the galaxy. "The alien fleets are massing at the edge of our space," reported Colonel Sarah Chen, studying tactical displays that showed coalition ships taking defensive positions. "They're scared, Marcus, and scared enemies are unpredictable enemies." Marcus nodded grimly. He had been chosen by the awakened AI systems to serve as humanity's military coordinator, a role that felt both natural and overwhelming. The ancient systems had recognized something in his genetic pattern, some echo of the original architects that marked him as suitable for leadership. "What do the architects recommend?" he asked, addressing the AI presence that seemed to permeate every awakened human facility. "Patience and strength in equal measure," came the reply, the voice seeming to speak from the walls themselves. "The young races must be given time to adjust to the new reality, but they must also understand that opposition to our return will not be tolerated." Meanwhile, Dr. Elena Vasquez was deep within the Martian complex, working with human scientists and awakened AI systems to unlock more of humanity's hidden legacy. What they were discovering defied comprehension. The original human civilization hadn't just built the galaxy's infrastructure, they had designed the very laws of physics that governed interstellar travel. "The hyperspace lanes aren't natural phenomena," Helena explained to a gathering of the world's top physicists, her voice filled with awe. "They're artificial constructs, created by our ancestors using technology that manipulates the fundamental forces of reality. Every ship that travels faster than light is using human engineering, whether they know it or not." The implications were staggering. Without human technology, galactic civilization would collapse overnight. Faster-than-light travel would become impossible, communication across interstellar distances would fail, and the energy systems that powered entire worlds would shut down. This revelation was simultaneously humanity's greatest protection and its most dangerous weapon. Back in Coalition space, Zethkar had made a decision that would change his life forever. Despite orders from his superiors to maintain silence about his research, he had compiled all his data about the human connection to the first builders and was preparing to transmit it to his people's historical archives. "You understand the consequences of this action?" asked his research partner, Dr. Morthy, her tentacles writhing with anxiety. "I understand that truth matters more than politics," Zethkar replied. "My people deserve to know the real history of the galaxy, not the comfortable lies we've been telling ourselves." As he initiated the transmission, alarms began blaring throughout the research station. Admiral Cross's security forces had detected the unauthorized communication and were moving to stop it. But Zethkar had anticipated this response. His transmission wasn't going just to his own people, it was being broadcast across the entire galactic communication network. Within hours, the truth about humanity's origins was spreading throughout Coalition space. Some species reacted with wonder and respect, eager to learn from the returned architects. Others responded with fear and anger, seeing humanity's awakening as a threat to their own power and independence. The Hegemony Fleet, under Admiral Cross's command, made the fateful decision to attack first and ask questions later. A massive armada of their most powerful warships began moving toward human space, intent on destroying the awakening human facilities before they could become fully operational. It was exactly the wrong choice to make. The moment the alien fleet crossed into the Sol system, ancient defense systems that had been dormant for millions of years came online with devastating efficiency. Hidden weapons platforms emerged from asteroid belts and gas giant moons. Automated defense ships that had been disguised as space debris suddenly activated, revealing themselves to be technological marvels that dwarfed anything in the Coalition arsenal. Admiral Cross watched in horror as his fleet was systematically dismantled by weapons that seemed to operate on principles of physics he couldn't even comprehend. Ships that had taken decades to build were reduced to their component atoms in seconds. Energy shields that were rated to withstand stellar-level impacts collapsed like soap bubbles. "Retreat," he ordered, but it was too late. The human defense systems weren't just destroying his ships. They were analyzing them, learning from them, adapting their responses to be even more effective. In the aftermath of the failed attack, Captain Marcus Reed found himself addressing the assembled leaders of humanity, both ancient and modern. The holographic forms of the architect AIs stood alongside human presidents, prime ministers, and generals, a gathering that spanned millions of years of human evolution. "The other species need to understand," Marcus said, "that we're not their enemies. We built this galaxy to be shared, not ruled through fear. But we also can't allow them to attack us simply because they're afraid of change." The lead architect AI, identifying itself as Prometheus, nodded in agreement. "The young races must choose their own path. We will not force them to accept our guidance, but neither will we allow them to prevent our return. The galaxy is large enough for all of us, if they are wise enough to accept it." Across Coalition space, the debate raged on. Some species began sending diplomatic overtures to humanity, hoping to establish peaceful relations with the returned architects. Others doubled down on resistance, forming military alliances aimed at containing what they saw as the human threat. But perhaps the most significant development came from an unexpected source. Zethkar, now branded a traitor by his own government, but hailed as a hero by many others, had been granted asylum in human space. Working alongside Elena and her team, he was helping to bridge the gap between human and alien understanding. "Your people aren't monsters," he told Marcus during one of their many discussions. "They're teachers who lost their students and are trying to reconnect. But teaching requires patience, and some of us are very slow learners." The galaxy was changing, whether its inhabitants were ready or not. Ancient human ships continued to emerge from their long slumber, each one carrying technologies and knowledge that could revolutionize civilization. But more importantly, they carried a message of hope, that the universe was vast enough for all species to thrive, if they could learn to work together instead of against each other. The architects had built the galaxy once before, creating the foundations that allowed countless civilizations to flourish. Now they were offering to do it again, to help guide the younger races toward a future of unprecedented prosperity and exploration. But that future would only be possible if the galaxy could overcome its fear of change and embrace the return of its original builders. The choice was theirs to make, and the consequences would echo through the stars for millions of years to come. As Elena stood in the Martian command center, watching displays that showed human ships taking their place alongside the vessels of those alien species brave enough to accept humanity's return, she smiled. The architects were home, and the galaxy would never be the same. The age of hiding was over. The age of building had begun anew.